The Middle Ages, which lasted from the fall of Rome to the start of the Renaissance, were a period of innovation, learning, and complexity. Although there are no clear events defining their beginning and end, they can be divided into the early, high, and late Middle Ages. The early Middle Ages began when Rome fell to the Visigoths. Although the Roman Empire continued under the Byzantine Empire in the east, much of Western Europe lost its central power base. Consequently, it became fragmented into groups such as the Visigoths and the Franks. Certain groups such as the Vikings from Scandinavia took advantage of this turmoil, raiding and eventually settling across Europe for almost 2 centuries. Despite this havoc, there were also elements of unity. The Byzantine Empire continued to flourish, becoming famous for its art, architecture, and literature. During the 5th century, King Clovis united the Franks of France and northern Italy under the Merovingian Empire. 3 centuries later, King Alfred succeeded in uniting the Anglo-Saxons to defeat the great Viking army and arguably creating England. However, it was the Christian Church that ultimately replaced the Roman state as the central political power. Landowners were required to pay 10% of their wealth in tax to the church, making it very rich. Even kings relied on the church for their position. Charlemagne, for example, the head of the Carolingian dynasty, was crowned Holy Roman Emperor by the church in 800. The Holy Roman Empire covered multi-ethnic territories across southern and western Europe and outlived Charlemagne, lasting for a millennium. Christianity was not the only growing religion. In the East, Islam was becoming increasingly prominent. Muslim armies were uniting different states under a single caliph. This expansion of Islam would later spread to Europe, especially the Iberian Peninsula in Spain, and clash with Christendom. The High Middle Ages were a period of advancement. This is partly attributed to a warm period causing a higher yield of crops and therefore trade. Additionally, agricultural innovations such as the plow and the 3-year crop rotation system meant farming became increasingly efficient and society more organized. A feudal system was adopted in which all land was rented from the crown. This growing social efficiency was not only confined to work and labor. Monasteries also became increasingly prevalent, promoting not just religion but law and learning. In 1215, the Magna Carta was signed in England, giving barons church protection from the unpopular King John. It paved the way for modern-day justice, making even kings subject to common law. This period of learning and advancement was augmented by the crusading movement. As Islam spread in territory and influence, the Church launched a series of missions to regain and expand Christian territory in Europe and the East. These crusades led to an increase in courtly literature, storytelling, and chivalrous knightly behavior that we often associate with the Middle Ages today. Despite this religious zeal, Christendom was not united. In 1054, the Church of Eastern Europe fell out with that of Western Europe over theological differences, dividing the Christian Church into the Catholic and Orthodox churches, which remain today. There was also rivalry for land. In 1066, for example, the Normans from northern France invaded England, expanding their culture and territory. This rivalry would continue into the late Middle Ages, which were characterized by difficulty and strife. The Western Schism occurred when the bishops of both Rome and Avignon claimed to be pope, dividing the unity and authority of the Church. Furthermore, in Germany in the 1500s, Martin Luther challenged the Catholic teachings by suggesting people should be more personally responsible for their relationship with God. This caused a religious reform movement known as Protestantism, which spread across Europe and partially inspired Henry VIII's new Church of England. Attempting to regain authority, the Catholic Church launched the Inquisition in the 12th century, persecuting people believed to be heretics, including also Cathars, Jews, and Muslims. This led to many centuries of fear and reduced the popularity of the Church. Some devout Protestants, known as Puritans, emigrated to the newly discovered America to practice their religion more freely, a key premise in America's national identity today. Further unrest was caused by the Hundred Years' War between England and France, who were competing for ownership of territories such as Aquitaine. This war continued for a century before France eventually relinquished its territories once it no longer had the resources to defend them. Likewise, in the east, Constantinople finally fell to the Ottoman Empire. All of this combined with the declining authority of the Church meant increasing political fragmentation across Europe. Another major blow was dealt by the Black Death that got to Europe during this time, carried by sailors returning from the east. This plague was spread by mice, rats, and fleas and caused purple boils, fever, and high mortality. People believed the plague was a punishment from God for their sins and criticized the Church for not effectively helping them get rid of it, further reducing its authority. The Church was losing its power, Europe was politically unstable, and the loss of Constantinople had reduced European trade routes to the east. It was this environment that prompted the Age of Exploration, in which Europeans began exploring Africa and America for wealth, trade, and knowledge. This environment also resulted in a burgeoning sense of separation from the Church, increasing self-awareness, a thirst for knowledge, and a fascination with the literature and learning of antiquity, creating a new era known as the Renaissance. Characterized largely by the rise and fall of the Church, the Middle Ages were a complex but defining period in history.